I would like to call to order the Monday, August 19th meeting of the City of Monona City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder DePula.
Here.
Alder Holmquist. Here. Alder Moore.
Here.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Rademacher. Here. Alder Bernstein.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the July 15th meeting?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I have two people for appearances. I guess Chief Cheney, I'm going to introduce you first.
We're one of the same.
Well, I don't need to introduce you, but you're here to introduce someone. Right?
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, Council. I had the great esteemed privilege and our crew, as well as the fire department, to be offered the opportunity to attend a community event of a new church that's in, it's proper to call it a church, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in town, the place of the Monona Oaks church location, and it was a wonderful, wonderful community event. We had blow-up or pop-up kid attractions and slides and lots of food and music, and it was a wonderful community event in which the fire department and police department were invited to help give out backpacks for kids that needed it. And it's also, I learned a lot, it's also a place in which will now be our second food pantry in Monona. So without further ado, he does not need me to introduce himself. He talks as much as I do, he's just pretending right now. Go ahead, Minister. Please.
Thank you, sir. Madam Mayor, Council, my name is Minister Barry Stamps. I'm affiliated with End Times Ministry International. My bishop name is Godfrey A. Stubbs. We've been in Madison area for the past 21 years. However, we just occupied the vacant building of Monona Community. We're here to grow in the community. We're here to also want to grow diversity also, okay? Our doors are always open. We do have the food pantry. Also, we have services on Wednesdays, Bible study. Okay, we also have our services on Sunday. We're here also to work with the community. As you see, we invited the police department, also the fire department, and they were so gracious to come, and we just had a ball. My pastor, my bishop asked me to come here today to thank you all for accepting us. And like I said, we're here to include, not exclude no one. We heard about the past at that church, okay, and we're not like that, okay? I'm a Christian, I'm a follower of Christ Jesus. I'm not a Christian nationalist, okay? I am a Christian. I've been ordained, okay? I'm also a resident pastor here, also. If you would like to, you can come through anytime you want to. Anytime you want to. I can leave my card. Anyone want my card? And I will set aside some time for you all to show you all what we're doing. Okay? But then again, I thank you all, especially Chief, for being there, because it showed us that we're truly welcome. And with that, thank you.
Welcome.
You're welcome. And I'd be happy to take your card and come and take a tour one of these days.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we
Teresa?
can't have a back and forth, but I just have a point of question. How do we address you? Is it Mr. Stamps or Stubbs? Or I didn't quite catch the last.
Bishop Godfrey Stubbs is the bishop
Yes.
of the church.
Yes.
I'm a minister pastor. I'm
Yes.
a resident pastor here. You can call me the pastor, Pastor Stamps.
Stamps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
There we go.
How many members does your church have?
We have a total almost 200.
Oh,
Wow.
And with the community itself, a lot of them will come also.
yeah, great. Thank you.
Yes.
I think we'd all love a card.
Sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
First thing is, I'm gonna go ahead.
If you don't, I don't. You can pass it down to me.
As long as I can make sure everybody gets
Yeah,
one.
I'm good,
Okay.
thanks, yeah.
Yeah.
You can send it out.
Please
there.
grab
Got
it.
it.
Yep.
You can get it.
I'll make sure,
Oh,
Pastor, I'll make sure everybody gets one. I'll email it so they got it hard in their file, so.
I'll get it from him so you can say.
Perfect.
yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I got plenty more.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, moving on, there is no public hearing, there is no consent agenda, there aren't any other appearances, correct? Just,
Correct.
let's see, moving on to council action items, under G1A, under unfinished business, consideration of resolution 24-8-2435, authorization to submit a referendum question to exceed levy limits by $3 million for operating expenses for inclusion on the November 2024 ballot, and this is put forth by the city administrator. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a second? Neil, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I will turn it over to Mark here,
Marcus-
here shortly, but I just wanted to cover and say, Mark has been in fast and furious communication with the Department of Revenue most of the day, I think on Friday and certainly on Thursday, trying to get the specific numbers put in the right order in terms of the language that they wish to do. So thanks to the Department of Revenue for their responsiveness. We did kind of have it ready to go, and then we did adjust the language a little bit in terms of the description. If you'll notice, council will notice last time in terms of for purpose of maintaining current operations and services is the main purpose, which kind of is, I think, more closely reflects our survey. And I think Alderwood and the mayor both asked if staff would make that adjustment. So we did make that slight change in the purpose for that. But Mark is, again, went through a lot of effort back and forth working with Department of Revenue to explain these numbers. So I would like to turn it over to him to just kind of give a brief overview of exactly what each of those numbers mean and why we had to put them in there. So.
Yeah, I sent the sheet today, kind of, which came directly from the DOR, and told us this is the numbers to put in there. I don't have my resolution in front of me, if you want to pop, just.
When we put it up, Mark, I can put it up on the screen here.
Just
Hold
in
on.
case you want to know how the numbers came
See
from
here.
and why they're like that, because it is confusing. When you kind of just read the resolution and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, I got it.
Okay, there we go. So folks can take a look at it
Um,
right here, so.
So, under state law, the increase in the levy of the city mill for tax to be imposed for the next fiscal year, 2025, is limited to our net new construction number. So if you go on the sheet, I don't know if you have it in front of you, if you're able to open that up. It's 0.455%, so basically 0.5%, results in a levy of $9,962,823. And how that number came about, I can kind of show you if you have that in front of me. I don't know if you have it too, Neil, if you want to put that up. So basically what they do is the state takes what last year's property taxes was, so $9,726,242, and then, so debt service excluded, and so debt service number was last year was $4,252,418. To get to what basically our operating levy is, $5,473,824. We had no TIF termination, so that was zero increase. And net new construction is the 0.44455. So it increased about 25,000. It's from 5,473,824 to 5,498,730. So basically, if the referendum doesn't pass, our net increase, we can increase the levy for non-debt services, basically 25,000. They do have in here this property tax adjustment, line 8. It decreases the number by 124,000, but that's just formality on there because we actually get new 124,707 personal property. That was changed with the new, when they went to the state got limited personal property aid. So
Mark, you want the levy limit worksheet, the section A, 20?
Section 8, yeah, so
Okay.
line 8, so that's our numbers, $5,374,022. That's what our operating levy is. And then we have to add in the debt service. The debt service did go up a little bit. So that's where the $9,962,823 came from. So this is coming straight from the states, and that's how that's calculated. So you do have it split between the operating and debt service. It's funny, it's hard to, it is a little confusing the way they write it, because, you know, the .45 doesn't really mean you increase it by $9 million. It's just that's what the total after all those, I had that net new construction number in there, including the debt service I will pay for next year. And then for the fiscal years, shall the city of Manila be allowed to exceed the limit and increase the levy for the next fiscal year 2025 for purpose of maintaining current operations and services by a total of 30.112%. So if you look at that levy worksheet again, you'll see there's the $3 million kind of underneath number 10. Allowable levy, which is the $9,962,823, and they divide that to get that number. So that's where the state determined that number. So which then you add the $3 million on to get to the $12,962,823. An ongoing basis. So what that means is ongoing doesn't mean each year you're gonna get $3 million in there. The $3 million means it goes into the base, so it never comes out. So the base is always going to be $3 million increased in there. So it gets a little
It's
confusing.
only doing that.
It's a one-time
for the first year,
thing.
and then it stays, just
Yeah,
stays there.
stays in there forever. So it's a little confusing. Some people think, well, it's really going to be, because the first time I read the example, I thought the same thing. Well, you mean you're going to increase it every year by the same dollar amount? No, it's just a one-time increase to the base, and going forward, that number is going to be in the base. So that's where these numbers came from, and that's all I have. Just want to show how these numbers were developed and where they came from.
I appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions? Doug, did
Yeah, I
you?
have one. If this passes, we would, and we have new construction in the future, that's the gain that we would get then in the future, right?
Yeah, so the gain would be the $3 million added on to the $5 million.
Plus whatever new construction we would
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
next year or the year after.
Yeah, so it'll be a lot bigger number for that new construction. It'll be a lot bigger base. So it won't be 25,000, it'll be a lot higher.
Right.
Did anyone else? Did you have a question, Nancy?
Yeah, I did. So as I read that, I know that you just said this, but as I read that, to me, it still reads like there is going to be $3 million more added each and every year,
Yeah, no,
as opposed to it's increasing once and it's staying at that figure.
Unfortunately, that's the way the state insisted it be written.
yeah.
And we agree, Alder. We raised
Yeah.
that exact question, and we're gonna have to, it's another thing we're gonna, as we go through and we do
Educate on.
education for the community, so it'll be very clear that that means it's a one-time increase of $3 million to the base, and then it'll just standard increases then after that, in terms
But
of
we
net new
can't say
construction.
it's a one-time increase to the base.
No, that's how they want it written like that. They approved it, and that's how they approved they wanted it. They gave us the
Yeah.
template.
It's, yes,
Yeah.
you see the attorney smiling and nodding, and it's just,
In the
it's,
statute.
it's another example of, I think, I don't know what the nice way to say, dysfunctional, maybe, the process is in terms of how communities are being faced with dealing with this and trying to communicate this to the public. But we're just gonna have to be very, I think, very, very explicit as we go forward to make it clear that this is, including that, the increase of the $3 million into the base for each fiscal year. And it's once it's in the base, it's one time, it's in. $3 million goes in the very first time, and it's in. There is not another, it is not $3 million each consecutive year that we're looking at doing this.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely confusing. So,
We call
I
this.
mean, it wouldn't be the first time that a referendum question is confusing. We all know, we've all been involved often enough to know that they're always confusing, but it just seems, it's really frustrating,
Yeah.
particularly when it comes to this issue that we can't clarify that in the referendum question, so.
There's really 3 examples, templates they give you, and all 3 of them, if you read all 3 of them, they're very confusing, because another one sounds like what it should be. So,
that we would, that almost, that would match the one that we would, and I think staff actually picked the third one on the list, I think it was.
That was the least confusing?
That we thought that's exactly what we wanted to do, and they're like, no, that's not the correct one for what you guys want. Okay, yeah, so it just makes the public education and discussion on this more difficult than it needs to be.
Definitely is a question for the FAQ.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just as a follow-up, my understanding from all of the discussions that we've had on this issue to date is that we've done our figuring conservatively, looking at the next 4 years, right? And so, and obviously if the net new construction gets better, I mean, we're not absolutely gonna top out necessarily in year 1, because part of it is for expenses that are years 2, 3, 4.
Right.
Correct.
Just set parts of it aside.
So, so we can't say that, include a maximum increase of 3 million. We can't do that either.
If I could, Mayor, it's,
Yeah.
Mark talked about the 3 versions DOR recommends. They're actually, the statute itself has language that it mandates. The language DOR Mark is talking about is for different scenarios, one of them being an ongoing, one of them being a one-time type of thing. But the core language is, it's not just recommended DOR language, it's in the statute, and the statute says shall use. So as much as we all agree the language is written in legislature speak and really not grammatically appropriate, we're stuck with it. We really are. One other thing I would just add is, and I talked to Mark about this beforehand, in the packet, your proposed language has a blank line, a paragraph break. The statutory language does not have that. So if you pass it, I would recommend you delete that paragraph break in the proposed language. It's admittedly anal retentive, but that's kind of what you pay me to be, and the statute is what it is,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I think the one that Mayor's gonna sign is gonna happen.
Okay.
Yes.
Don't ask me like that.
And then, sorry, one other question, as long as, do we have, I mean, we all recognize that net new construction is primary issue here, the fact that we are limited by that. And I know that there's also been some hope against hope that our legislature might shift enough that sooner or later they might go to something like CPI or something like that as opposed to net new construction. But as long as we're stuck with net new construction for now, do we have any kind of a sense of what number we would prefer to be shooting for in net new construction? If there is such a thing in terms of a percentage on an annual basis in order to keep up with our operating expenses in a way that we're obviously not able to do now.
I was going to answer that in kind of a reverse way, Alder, in terms of, I think we've talked a little bit, in order to gain a 1% increase, we need approximately a $20 million increase in value. So it's not like, so if we're looking at,
That's right, you did that.
yeah, so just a reminder, so just using that as a rule of thumb, if we wanted to be able to see an increase of 3%, just for the sake of using a number, we're in need of about $60 million of growth to be able to do that.
Okay.
So this is going to be I think this is a moderate term, I guess, solution to some of our operating costs, but it does not in any way, shape, or form, I think, absolve us of still trying to figure out how to diversify our revenue streams a little bit, and even certainly continue to find efficiencies where they exist. This is going to be a difficult process. This buys us a little time, but it's certainly not getting us free and clear of further analysis and figure out exactly how to keep paying for services. That's for sure.
Yeah. In reality, it's, being landlocked, so we don't have a lot of the growing expenses
Right.
either, so that helps. If you, ideally, from my end, if I can get to 2%, that'd be a good number that we
Yeah.
work. That'd be ideal, 2%.
That'd be a lot more than we've had.
2% is a decent number for us to work with other stuff. That'd be ideal. We'd like to have, 3, whatever. But, below 2 is, is a lot harder. But if I was looking for a number, realistically, if you get to 2%, that'd be over the next 3 to 4 years or something like that. That's where I'd shoot for.
So $40 million increase.
And we
in
should
net
have,
construction.
I know I was supposed to get some for Doug, and I didn't end up sending to you, but we got the Bloom coming on, which is gonna be 28 million. So we have, and if, I know you're all aware of some of the other projects that are coming on, we will have some bigger numbers coming in. The biggest issue is how much is the demo gonna hurt, and when that timing of it is. Because that's the big thing, if you can do it all, demo in 1 year, and maybe everything built in 1 year, that's a lot of number, never gonna work out like that. But we have some big projects, and they could have some
Yeah.
impact.
Mhm.
on it.
Especially once they're through TIF, once we close those districts.
Right.
But we'll be getting a lot of them are PAYGO, so that'll help pay
Yeah, in 3 years, we should be
some of the
three.
TIF-related projects anyway.
As you know, there's a number for the TIF, and I think in 4 years, 3 to 4 years, we'll be closing TIF 4. And granted, and probably maybe another one if we have to. So there will be some other stuff coming. But,
If I could too, maybe just for the public, so you know, when we talk in terms of $40 million of growth, it has to be net new
Right.
construction.
Right.
And Mark had mentioned how, we're landlocked, so we don't do greenfield plow up cornfields. Everything Monona develops pretty much requires something to be demolished. So if we demolish a $2 million building to build a $10 million building, it's only a net increase of 8.
just for this year's, for an example, so everything's all combined, residential, manufacturing, commercial, so it's all the net of all those. This year, residential is really what carried the city this year, because we actually would have had a lot higher number. I think the residential number alone was like $12 or $13 million. But we had a couple buildings must have been torn down for commercial, and they actually had a negative, so we had to combine them all. So it would have been a little bit higher, but we had a negative at the commercial. So that's what they're bigger buildings
Yeah.
too. Residential helps a lot too.
Anyone else? Brian, did you have?
I did, I'm trying to go back to the language in the simplest terms, if we're at 9, I know it's 9, but just say 9, and we're adding 3 to it, that gives us a new base of 12.
Right.
But next year, it would be 12, and the following year after that, it would be 12, and the following year after that, it would be 12,
Right.
right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Right.
Like-
yeah.
Well, plus new construction.
Plus any net
Yeah.
new construction,
Right.
but round numbers, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, taking all the confusion out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
To explain to the average person on the
Right.
street, it's a
It's a
shot of
one-time
3,000
shot.
or 3 million,
Right.
but that shot stays
Stays, right.
Once it's
As
in,
a-
it's in.
as a
But we're
base,
not-
which,
yep.
And it wouldn't be
Becomes the
15 the
base.
next year and 18 the next year. I
oh,
know,
that would
right.
be,
That'd be wonderful.
no, that would be,
That'd
I would be
expensive.
voting no.
Right.
Right. We all,
That's
that'd be-
unfortunately the way it sounds,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's an easier way of
Yeah.
explaining it, of it's increasing, and that is staying, because I think that is important. I wouldn't want to read it the other way of saying that it only happens the one time and you go back to 9.
Right.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right, correct.
right.
All right, that helps.
Rick?
Yeah, so this levy for general obligation debt, this came straight from the state. this one, this
The
spreadsheet.
spreadsheet, the
Section.
debt service stuff came from
The one you emailed
Yeah.
today.
me. Yeah.
So
Line 9 came from me.
9 came from you.
Yeah.
All these computations do like from 3 to 8, all the $4 and $5 million figures,
That's your operating.
okay? How do these figure into the computation? I'm not clear on how we work from, we have the 9 million and we're raising it 30%, we get the 12 million.
Correct.
But all these other numbers, do they have a role to play in how you get to those final computations, or are they just additional language for no particular point of view?
Well, that's how you got to the $9 million. So if you look at line 5, the $5,473,824, that's your operating levy.
Right?
So what they said is now your net new construction is the .455. So that gets you the $5,498,730. So increase about 25,000 just rounding.
Okay,
So that's your new operating levy, actually. That's how much we have for operating money.
okay.
And the other stuff then goes down a little bit. There's adjustment for personal property, which offsets. There's no effect on us at all. And then you have your debt service, and that's the 4588. That's line number 9.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you get to that 9962. That's what the number goes on that.
Okay,
So that's your total overall property tax levy, operating and debt service combined. So next year, kind of going back a little bit, that $3 million will go out, be added onto your $5,498,730. So, which is what, 8 million? So your 1% will be in that number, which is 80,000 or something like that. or 85,000.
ooh, okay. Now you're starting to lose me. I followed you up until that point. But, well, I guess what you're saying is that you need to do each of these computations in turn so that you can get to the 9 million. But
Yeah.
it's not just adding them. It's doing some kind of operation that's articulated on the left to get to the next number.
Well, it's the your operating is number 8 overall, and then your
Right.
debt service is number 9 to get to the total combined.
Right.
It's just 8 plus 9, number 8, line 8 plus 9 is equal to what the 10 is, and that's the numbers in the first line of the resolution.
Alder Bernstein,
Overall total property tax number.
Alder Bernstein, if you've done your taxes at home and how it does that, you start off with a number and it does those little one-time adjustments each time you move it down.
That's what
That's
I was
exactly
thinking.
what they're doing here too.
Okay, it's like a tax.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just the instructions are less clear here.
Exactly. Yeah, even less clear than
Okay.
at home. Exactly.
All right, I am struggling with this a little, but I do get the general impact. So I am feeling comfortable with what we're proposing, but I think I'll need some additional tutoring
Sure.
from you or
Yeah, no
whoever
problem.
to really understand this a little bit more so I can explain it
Yeah.
when I am asked about it.
No problem.
Anyone else? Teresa, did you?
No, I was just going to offer I could share an email exchange that I had this afternoon with Rick, and
Anyone
I had
else?
questions too.
Mary, I
Mhm.
don't have a question. I guess I just have a comment, because following on something that Bill said, and also actually on the heels of meeting a new neighbor today who is like doing cartwheels over his new residency in Monona. I have two young guys who just moved in next to me, and I haven't seen them since I've been away. And I was like, "How are you finding it?" And they were like, "Oh my God, everybody is so nice, and Monona is so great." and I guess I just wanted to say that I think that sometime. And I'm just hopeful that the community will think of it this way, or members of the community will think of it this way. Sometime in the 1980s, I think it was, I think taxes became a dirty word. Started certainly in the 1980s with taxes where, if it was more taxes, or more taxes were bad and less taxes were, good. And obviously, we've continued to go down that pike, not only locally, but obviously on a national level. And, you know, we often hear, and I guess I'm wanting to shift the paradigm. I'm sure we'd all love to shift the paradigm. To have people think about, are they getting more value? Not whether they're paying more or less taxes. And, you know, we often hear in Monona, we're not Madison. How often do we hear that? Like all the time, right? Monona isn't Madison. But we're also, going back to what Bill said, we're also extremely unique for this entire area. You know, we have, you know, arguably the best Parks and Rec department in the entire area. We have an amazing public safety in not only our police department, but our fire department. Everybody raves about our pool. Everybody raves about our library. You know, everybody raves about our senior center, and most communities don't even have one, so they have to use ours. You know, our streets are better than, you know, anywhere else that I can think of, you know, and even our business community. I mean, you know, we have some of the greatest small businesses and like some of the best ethnic restaurants, you know, certainly on the, in the Madison area, and ethnic groceries, you know, and like amazing tree-lined streets. And, you know, as my dad used to say, there's no such thing as a free lunch. You know, all the things, all those things, I mean, I just want people to understand that, and I hope people do in this community do understand that, you know, that's incredible value. That's what drew us all to Monona, and it's what drew a lot of the staff to Monona to work here too. And I mean, I don't, you know, I'm not thrilled with my taxes going up either, you know, and I understand it's difficult for some people, for everybody really, because again, I think we've gotten into this mindset of taxes are bad. And if our taxes are high, it must be because our government is wasting money or not spending money wisely or whatever. And I just hope that as this campaign, as this education goes forward over this referendum, that we can really impress that upon people. And I hope people understand that and they feel that in living in Monona, because it really is true. There's just no, we don't have, as Bill said, we don't have cornfields. And I don't think anybody here wants cornfields. I don't think anybody here wants subdevelopments. If they did, they'd be living in Sun Prairie or in Stoughton or any number of other places where you can have those. So I just would encourage people to embrace the high quality, and I think people do, of what we offer here in Monona, and trust that we really are doing everything that we can as a community to deliver the high quality of services and personnel and beauty and everything else that people come to Monona for.
Thank you. Anyone else? Doug?
Yeah, I just wanted to take a minute for us all to reflect on the fact that it really has taken us a long time to get to this point. We have gone through, I don't know the numbers exactly, but say over the last 5 years, I think we've maybe had 1 year where we could increase the levy 2%. And, you know, but asking for this kind of money was something we tried, you know, that we wanted to avoid if we could. And we did for a long time. In fact, we even put it off, I know, at least once, because the school was going to do their own referendum. So, yeah, this is not a decision taken lightly, but I think the two things that really kind of broke the back, was the last straw on the camel's back or whatever, was partly the huge increase in home values that made it more and more difficult for us to get enough new construction to increase the budget, the levy. And secondly was inflation. You know, we were in an 8+% inflation environment for a year, and then a 6% and 3.5% or whatever. And we were at basically zero for all that. And that was really sort of the hammer that, you know, brought it to the point where if we want to operate the city in the way that Nancy was reflecting on, in a way that provides the services that people expect, we really, and to maintain a staff that we all appreciate, we really, this referendum is absolutely essential for the future of the community.
Agreed. And particularly if we want to pay our staff what they deserve to be paid.
Right, well,
Yeah.
or we'd be paying somebody else less to,
Right.
you know, I mean, that's what we've.
With a
been
lot
dealing
less
with, so.
experience.
For a small period of time until they go somewhere else.
Right.
too.
Right.
Right.
And we have a lot invested in our staff in terms of training and experience, and you pay for that when you lose someone. Anyone else? Okay, well then will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Holmquist,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Rademacher,
Aye.
Alder Bernstein,
Aye.
Alder DePuy.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mark, for all the time you've devoted to this, and Neil. So we will be moving on with, we have a meeting with the communications people scheduled for tomorrow, and we're going to be moving on with the communications plan we've started to develop, and now they can move forward with putting together some of the materials we're going to need, and hopefully we will start using them very soon. So, moving on to new business, item 2A, consideration of ordinance 8-24-777, establishing no parking on Friday of each week at the dead end of Furchland Place. This is put forth by the Public Works Committee, and Dan is here via Zoom to explain this to us.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of council. Staff is seeking city council approval to put in place parking restrictions at the dead end turnaround on Furchland Place. Pelletier ran into some issues in late May and throughout the month of June with collecting the carts on Furchland Place due to the construction equipment parked at the dead end. Included in the packet, I provided a few pictures of examples of what the Pelletier trucks were coming upon that they were unable to complete their turnaround. They need to access the dead end of Furchland Place, complete their turnaround, and then collect the carts. As you can see in one of the pictures, there's a trash cart on the south side of the street there. So when there's equipment or cars or whatever that's occupying the dead end, they cannot collect, and then they have to back out of Furchland Place onto Monona Drive, which is an unsafe movement. So staff is seeking your authorization and approval to put in place no parking 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Fridays of each week. And this should allow Pelletier to complete their service without any interruption. This did go to the Public Works Committee on August 7th, and we did receive their recommendation for approval to you.
Any questions for Dan?
Is it just Friday?
Doug?
Oh, I was just
Teresa?
gonna, 7 to 5, I've seen, that's okay.
Anyone else? Doug?
So I was gonna ask if there's any reason not to go ahead, or if there's any reason to, I guess, maybe it's.
I think in terms of, obviously, this is an existing situation that's already occurring.
Yeah.
I think we have temporary, under the mayor's authority, I think we have temporary no parking up there right now.
Okay.
But it would be,
That's fine.
either, you can look at it either way, I guess, either we could go ahead and do it right now since it's already in place, or we can wait one more time if we'd like, so.
Yeah, I think we're trying to wait unless we have a reason to go ahead, so.
Has the whole neighborhood been notified
I mean, it has been posted at this point. It has been
Right.
posted.
that it's under consideration to go to
How
a Friday?
Well, permanent, I mean, certainly,
Not that it's temporary, no parking, but that there's a consideration to go to a permanent status, is what I'm asking. if
Yeah.
It's been notified.
yeah,
Do you typically notify? You do, don't you, Dan?
We
Nearby
do
neighbors if you're going to
typically
do that?
notify. In this case, emails have been sent in late May, early June, not to all parties, but we have had the posting with barricades up there since, I think it was the first week of June. The request for no parking 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Fridays of each week is already posted there. The signage has been installed for the entire month of July. So I'm not really quite sure if formal letters need to be sent in this case because the signage is already there and there's been 100% compliance since then. But if that's the desire of council for us to send out letters and then come back in 2 weeks, we can do that.
I think most of the residences right next to that dead end are condos, right, that have parking underneath? I think. I know
Watercress
it is the
condos-
case on the on the north side.
Right, Watercrest Condos has underground parking, and this impacts, I think the overflow parking that occurs there, other than construction equipment, is from the condo units that we supply the carts to.
Anyone else? Brian?
Because it's not pressing, I would encourage us not to take it out
Right.
of order and
I
to
would
just
agree.
maintain it, come back in 2 weeks
Yep.
and give people an opportunity.
Yeah.
It's not gonna impact trash and it allows it to conduct as normal.
All right, moving on to item 2B, consideration of resolution 24-8-2436, City of Monona resolution to pursue Soul Smart designation and submit a solar statement of support put forth by the Sustainability Committee, and Thor is here to
Good
tell
evening,
us about
Mayor,
this.
Council, thank you.
Good evening.
So staff is seeking approval of this resolution to pursue Soul Smart designation and issue the solar statement of support, which is the first step in the process. Soul Smart is a national program funded by the U.S. Department of Energy to help communities implement best practices to facilitate solar development and build a healthy solar market in their communities. It helps communities review their zoning code and permitting process to remove unnecessary barriers to solar development there and perform outreach and education. It is a no-cost program. It just requires us to make this initial commitment, and then we'll be paired with some technical experts who will do this review for us and can build a roadmap to our goals, and then we'll be recognized with a level of designation, bronze through platinum, to recognize our efforts if we meet certain benchmarks. So Monona has long had solar energy goals. We had at one point the largest municipal rooftop solar array in the state, and we have an ambitious 100% renewable energy goal for city operations and community-wide. I think Soul Smart would be a big step in helping us meet those goals. And again, with minimal resources required, no funds would be committed. It would just be minimal staff time. So staff does support the effort, and it is estimated it would require 10 to 20 hours of staff time to meet a bronze level of recognition, and from there we can decide to pursue a higher level of recognition. There's currently an ongoing regional collaboration through the Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change to facilitate workshops and trainings and shared resources between Dane County communities. You can see in the packet that several of our peer communities have achieved bronze to platinum Soul Smart designations in the last 5 years. and in conversations with those staff and at workshops that I attended, they've gotten great value from that and removed barriers to solar implementation. This was recommended by the Sustainability Committee on June 6th at that meeting, and staff is now seeking approval from council.
Questions, anyone? Nancy?
Yeah, so, Thor, so I'm a little unclear. So are they coming, is this kind of like in focus on an energy audit where they come in and kind of do an audit first and then give us a designation and then give us a roadmap as to how to get to the next designation?
It's
Or
not, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's kind of a build your own plan to your goal designation. So for instance, if we want to achieve bronze, there's 3 categories that we have to meet a certain number of points in, and that's, you would achieve points by training your staff in best practices, posting checklists for the permitting process online, reviewing the zoning code, implementing certain zoning changes like, clarifying which districts solar is allowed in, things like that. The first step is their technical experts will do a comprehensive review of your ordinances and of your permitting process, and then issue a report and make recommendations for those changes. And then they'll sit down with you and help you plan that roadmap to your goal designation. And then once you've checked off those boxes, you'll get recognized with that designation.
but it's planning without money. Is it planning without money?
I mean, we don't pay for these services, if that's what you mean.
No, but I'm saying if the roadmap is,
It may eventually
Four
require more
things that-
staff
Well,
time.
can you, when you say roadmap, what is it that how do you define
he's
that?
I don't have the definition, he's the one that used
Okay,
the word,
got
so
it.
but I'm assuming the
Got it.
roadmap would be, these are the things we would recommend in terms of ordinances or zoning or whatever, or other energy-related things to move you from where you are now to a better place.
Well, I think
Isn't
it's,
that the goal?
I think it's mostly to do with ordinance review,
Okay.
as far as Soul Smart goes.
Okay.
Thor also mentioned some of our ambitious goals for the city in terms of our clean energy
Right.
goals. And the Sustainability Committee did, and Thor can speak to this also since you were involved in it, did seek out, let's put a price tag on what it would cost to really get a roadmap to how we can meet our 100% clean energy goals.
Correct.
And that price tag came in at about $70,000 to hire a consultant. And we were sort of a little deflated on that. And so we're discussing alternatives, but tangent to that or parallel to that, this other opportunity showed itself. And reviewing our ordinances and sort of removing barriers to how developers can get solar easier, how homeowners can put solar on their rooftops more easily is helpful. It doesn't get us everything, but it's part of the puzzle, I guess.
Sure, I just didn't know
Yeah.
if it came with, I just didn't know if, again, if there was if it also provided us with whatever Flora was calling a roadmap, but if we did those things, what the outcome would be. I'm just a very outcome-driven person,
Of
so
course.
as I know we all are. So I'm just looking at, okay, if, not that it's a lot of time, but I'm just trying to figure out if, I don't know, it just seems like getting a bronze medal if we're not doing anything.
Well, we would be
For doing
changing our ordinances.
It's kind of an
for
initial
example.
step.
Yeah,
right?
it's just one more step. I know in some of
Right.
the plan commission meetings that I've watched, I've noticed that there are increasing, for example, I've
Mhm.
noticed that there are an increasing number of people who are bringing things up, like, they bring up a sort of a wish. They'd wish the developer would take a certain step toward more green outcomes, whatever it might be. But then there is the reminder that the job of the plan commission is just to make sure the developer's following the ordinance. That's all you can do. So, or one of the jobs of the plan commission.
Right.
So in reviewing those ordinances, maybe we have some opportunities there, maybe we don't, but let's find out, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, you know what the opportunities are. Okay. Yeah.
Anyone else? Brian?
I think you may have said it, but this might clarify. When they do the initial audit, are you given a designation at that time? And then you can achieve the next step up? So can they do the initial evaluation and say, yeah, you're bronze right now?
Right.
But to get
We're
to...
very close. We're very close right now to bronze.
Yeah.
It's super easy to get to the bronze
Yeah.
level.
So we've already
No,
done a
because they're-
self-audit.
We've explored the feasibility, yes, but there are certain actions you have to take that you can't take till you've made the commitment, like issuing this letter of support, posting some criteria online, and publishing to the community this report that we get from SoulSmart. So there's some things that can't happen until we make this commitment, but the jump from where we are now to bronze would be pretty minimal. Lots of the boxes we've already checked, through the Dane County workshops they've had. We've already attended some of these trainings that would be required to meet bronze. So we're, over halfway there to bronze already. The commitment would be pretty minimal to get to bronze, and then, beyond would be another discussion.
But again, and I think this is what Nancy was saying, the goal is not to get to a bronze or a silver or gold level. The goal is to dig in and see where we have some ordinances that could be altered, and to make those alterations, to streamline the permitting process of the types of changes that we need to see in our residents and in our business community.
So I think what we're saying is we'd like to keep moving forward on this
Yeah.
energy plan, so
Yeah.
to speak, and this is one small step we can take that isn't going to cost us much. We're going to
Yeah.
get some benefit out of it,
Right.
and it's not going to take too much staff time.
Right.
So if we approve this tonight, it approves us making this statement saying that we're interested in pursuing it, right?
Correct.
Is that?
Correct.
Is this start for immediate approval?
No.
No.
Okay.
So you can everybody can think about it, and it'll come back in 2 weeks. Anything else? Okay, and moving on to yet another item for Thor. To C, consideration of ordinance 8-24-778, amending chapter 263-5 and 263-6 of the Code of Ordinances regarding length of lawns and the regulation of natural lawns, and this is also put forth by the Sustainability Committee.
Yeah, thank you. So these proposed ordinance changes came from the Sustainability Committee's NOMO May outreach program, and the committee has really made it a focus in the last year to move beyond NOMO May and focus on Slow-Mo Summer, which is a kind of national campaign to encourage native plantings and natural lawns year-round rather than just in May, to take advantage of the environmental benefits there for stormwater retention, pollinator habitat, reduced energy emissions from lawn care, and biodiversity. The committee was concerned that if they began to promote slow-mo summer, they'd run into issues with the existing natural lawn ordinance, which the committee felt was too restrictive. So they've proposed these changes, which would essentially simplify the process to install a natural lawn, and increase the amount of area that in a particular lawn that could support a natural lawn. The committee believed that this would demonstrate the city's stated sustainability values, and just expand this opportunity to promote one of their goals. So in 2022, the City Council passed the ordinance which allowed for no mow may, which suspended the regulation of length of lawns at an 8-inch height during the month of May. Since then, the committee has promoted no mow may each year, and they're looking to grow this. So they're looking to promote natural lawns. Some of the barriers that they ran into were that under the existing ordinance, a natural lawn permit is required. Since the city on record has approved only one natural lawn permit ever, there's none active right now. So it's not something that's necessarily being enforced and monitored, but we're aware of natural lawns throughout the city. There's just no active permits. The existing ordinance requires residents to submit a natural lawn management plan prior to getting a permit approved, which includes a description of the plants to be used, management techniques, and purpose for the lawn. It also requires the city to mail a copy of the permit application to neighboring property owners within 300 feet of the applicant's property. And if at least 51% of those neighboring property owners issue an objection, the application must be denied. There's a $25 permit fee for a 2-year permit. As well as the permitting process, there's locational standards and restrictions. Natural lawns are currently prohibited on city right-of-way, and there's a 10-foot setback from property lines and from city right-of-way. And then there's some other language in the ordinance about enforcement and safety and nuisance. So the Sustainability Committee felt that was too restrictive, and the proposed changes would first of all redefine natural lawns to planned natural landscape areas. The committee felt this would better reflect the intentional nature of a natural lawn and the purpose of them. It would remove the need for residents to submit a management plan or obtain a permit, and for the city to send notices. So essentially a natural lawn would be required by right, as long as you're meeting the definition of a planned natural landscape area. It would remove minimum setbacks while still maintaining the requirements that they don't cause a safety issue, impede right-of-way, or cause vision obstructions. And it also has eliminated the ability to remove a natural lawn or a planned natural landscape area through burning, which is currently allowed under the existing ordinance. Staff researched peer communities ordinances and found that this ordinance varies greatly from community to community. It's common for permits to be required. It's also common for natural lawns to be permitted by right, such as the proposal in front of you today. In the packet, I've included some examples of what a natural lawn or planned natural landscape area looks like. Pollinator habitat, wildflowers, native prairie grasses. And I do want to emphasize that under the proposed changes, enforcement is fundamentally the same. There's no changes to what would constitute a nuisance lawn, for instance. There's still a requirement that a planned natural landscape area would not harbor vermin or pose a safety issue or impede right-of-way or have excessive unmanaged growth. They are, under the proposed language, required to be intentional and maintained and have a clear defined border of some kind, whether that's turf grass or rocks or some other kind of landscaping. That's all I have.
Questions? Doug?
Thanks, Thor. Yeah, I was actually part of the group that wrote that, adopted that, the current ordinance, and I can tell you that at the time that we passed it, that's what we had to do to get any natural lawn ordinance passed. It's
Because
obviously,
there was pushback?
oh yeah, there was a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
But that was a long time ago. But it's obviously, it's rigorously draconian, I think. It's, and where people aren't doing it, we're not enforcing it anyway,
Right.
so let's get rid of it. I guess so right now, if you have native, I guess I'm trying to figure out why we actually need any ordinance if we can't just rely on the nuisance and the
Right.
ordinances.
I can probably speak to
Okay.
that. If you, without, the benefit of the proposal before you now is it imposes objective standards as to what a natural lawn is. If we just go to the nuisance situation, then what we'll get are, I have to be able to prove to the judge that that property violates a specific provision of our ordinance. There's really only, if the grass is more than 8 inches long, we can measure that, and I could certainly prosecute based on that. Other than that, I've had other communities where we prosecute based on there's invasive weeds in it. The defense that is always raised is, show me a lawn where there's not, creeping jenny or dandelion or whatever. And right or wrong, it's a very persuasive defense to municipal judges, The sort of harboring vermin and that sort of, that sounds good, and I don't mean this against Thor at all, but proving to a judge that this lawn is a harborage for vermin where that lawn is not, is difficult. If I had the next door neighbor come in and testify that he's visually seen a bunch of mice come from that property, I can prove it. Other than that, I'm left with, it's tall grass and it's not mowed, so there's probably mice in there. It doesn't meet the standards. So the benefit of this ordinance, or any ordinance like this, is it imposes objective standards where I can look at the ordinance and I can say they are not in compliance for X, Y, and Z reasons. Where if you're left with just the nuisance ordinance, they work in extreme circumstances, but other than extreme circumstances, they're effectively unenforceable.
So if I can just follow up on that. This identifies plant natural landscape, include common species of grasses, so that would be something that would be an issue if they're taller than 8 inches. Wildflowers native to or naturalized to North America, and so forth. But if I wanted to just right now, could I grow wildflowers
Yes.
in my yard if I wanted to?
Yes, and many people are.
I mean, I have daisies, I don't know if
Right.
they're really considered, I'm not even sure if they're native or not, probably. That just sort of volunteered in my yard, and I decided, hey, I kind of like the way they look, so I let them go in the spring, and eventually cut them down. I don't know if I'm a scofflaw or not, but.
So Doug, so being
that
a
was
part
a-
of, yeah, go ahead.
That was a point of conversation as staff was discussing this and with the committee. Is one of the arguments to get rid of the permit was where the line is drawn between just a landscaping bed, a small landscaping bed, and a full natural lawn. Whereas, having these species of native wildflowers and grasses in a small landscaping bed, I think that we'd all agreed that's not a full natural lawn,
Right.
requiring a permit, and very common. So where does it, what size, what location does that become a natural lawn?
The benefit from my standpoint, and Thor in the sustainability committee, I know they put a lot of time in it, and they did consult with Dan Stefani and myself on a lot of this. I focused on C1, which basically says that the area has to contain only species native to North America or are naturalized thereto and found on the UW-Wisconsin horticulture list of native and naturalized plants. So from my perspective, I can go to that list and I can say, okay, you know, the inspector says there's this, this, and this on the property. Is it on this list? And that is, at least that provision is very clear and objective, and I think is better than what we have now in one way.
Right. No, I agree. This is definitely better than what we have now.
I mean, it's,
Okay.
you can imagine, this is just a fraction of the conversation
Right,
that this
I'm sure.
surprisingly generated, and just, it kind of got to this level of, really, this is kind of getting out of hand. At the end of the day, we want, you know, how do we express what our values are? Well, our budget conveys what our values are. Our laws, our ordinance is a document that explains what our values are. We want folks to, we have a Green Tier Legacy Community report that the community, that Monona fills out and submits every year. It's sort of surpassed our own Monona Sustainability Plan in that it is more robust, it tackles more areas. It's got a specific section just for land use. And we just want to educate citizens about how each of us, using our little plot of land, can really do something good and helpful. And No Mow May is a good start, but it's kind of just, it's never quite hit the target. In fact, there are communities now, Appleton being one of them, that are rescinding their ordinances against No Mow May because it's just getting out of hand. And so how do you sort of encourage people, but No Mow May, when we passed it, the amount of news media, the amount of conversation it sparked and continues to spark is probably the biggest benefit of it all. It gets people talking. So how can we get people talking in different ways? Well, let's talk about an area of land that is more than just turf grass, which is the least productive thing you can do with an area of land, is to put turf grass on it. It's highly chemical reliant. If you see a lawn that has nothing but beautiful turf grass, it is beautiful, but the only way you can get it without any specks of yellow or purple or white, the only way you can get it is with chemicals. It's just not a natural piece of land. So a natural lawn would have all different multiple colors and textures and wouldn't require any chemicals. And that's going to reduce runoff into Lake Monona. It's going to do all sorts of wonderful things, right? Invite pollinators and other creatures that need those chemical-free meals that they get from that land. At the end of the day, we ran it past Public Works, we ran it past Attorney Cole, and some of the high-level things are, as long as you don't obstruct sight lines. If you're driving your car and you cannot see what you need to see because someone's got tall grass, no, that's illegal. You cannot do that, right? As long as you have what is generally visually planned out, it's not neglectful, it's not a big heap of weeds, then it's okay, right? So we just wanted to find a way to increase awareness and to make our ordinances more in line with our values. People are already doing it. When they look at our ordinance, they're almost laughable how out of touch they are, really. So that's, I think, in its simplest form. Just let people do these things. Just keep it safe, keep it tidy, and you can do what you want to do with your yard.
Can I just ask how you
Yeah.
plan to enforce this? Because I
Yeah.
can tell you of at least two
Right.
properties in town that are a heap of jumbled
Yeah.
weeds and
Yeah.
not nice and neat and beautiful.
And we've thought about
And
that
how-
also,
And
right?
they've, well, at least one has said, oh, this
Yeah.
is my natural yard.
Which, yeah,
know.
no. So really, enforcement wouldn't change at all from what is currently enforced or able to be enforced under current statute. So we have not lessened any authority to enforce by any stretch. We still have those same guidelines. there.
Yeah, the only thing if I could add to that, basically in any of these regulations, you can sort of do it beforehand in a permitting process or after the fact on an enforcement process. Alder Rademacher's right. The substance is not changing, but you are going from a sort of proactive, preemptive scenario to an after-the-fact enforcement scenario. You're chasing the problem instead of preventing the problem. You know, and that's certainly a policy call for the council. The other policy thing I think you might want to consider is the setbacks. I think as proposed, the current draft has no setbacks, so
As
you.
long as it doesn't block sightlines.
Yep, so you're.
No setbacks from the side yard either.
Exactly. I've had several communities now that have problems with that, particularly with certain species of creeping Jenny and creeping Charlie. And they don't have setbacks either, and it's a constant problem of the neighbors rightly object. And they say, well, why should I have to keep fighting it on my land when it's my neighbor that's doing this, you know? So currently as drafted, there is no setback, and I think that's, you know, obviously something for y'all to decide.
There is a requirement for a clearly defined border, which I think we would envision that be landscaping stones or just a path of traditional turf grass.
So it explains that? That's what that means?
No, those examples are not explained in the language, but the committee intends to publish that guidance on the website.
But in fairness, though, when we're talking about enforcement, guidance from the committee is not a law. Yeah, I mean, a defendant will rightly say, I don't have to follow your guidance. I have to follow the ordinance the council passes. And a clearly defined border will be debatable in court.
Everything you say is absolutely, I'm positive it's true. You know what you're talking about. I just don't know that I wonder if we're chasing what do they say? Chasing a solution in looking for a problem that doesn't exist. I don't know.
Well, something to think about, like
It's
Bill
something to
said.
think about, yeah.
I could just say as somebody who has plenty of creeping Charlie, and probably would be accused of having an unkept lawn because I'm out of town and I don't hire a landscape service. And by the way, it's much better for the environment. Forget the
It is.
pollinators for a minute.
Right.
Because and I have an electric mower, but in terms of a gas mower, it's much better if you mow every other week and let it go
Yeah.
along and not. But you know, I have plenty of creeping Charlie, and I can tell you, it doesn't matter where the path is or where the stones are, it's gonna go wherever it
It's
wants
gonna
to
go, yeah,
Unless I put chemicals on it,
right.
it goes where it wants to go,
Neil, did you want
unfortunately.
to say something?
Actually own
I just wanted to say that creeping Charlie's edible tastes like spinach.
Right.
Seriously. Hate it.
Right.
Brian, did you have something?
Mine had to do with
Not
the
to mention dandelions, which are also very good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mine had to do with the natural border. Particularly, I think when individuals are having this in their rear yard, that it becomes a bigger issue of how to maintain some controlled edge or controlled border to it. I like having the piece in there. I'm not sure if there's a width for a setback of that. As a consideration, I don't know, I mean, without it, this is light years ahead of where it's been, and I saw the earlier rendition, and this is a great shift. I thank you to Teresa, the committee, Thor, like, this is wonderful. I think it's a great spot. I'm just a little hung up on that border when I'm not sure what I think of it just yet.
And maintaining some setbacks was considered by the committee at one point, and ultimately they decided to be as least restrictive as possible, essentially.
The council can certainly change that if they want to, so. Anyone else have anything to say? Neil, did you want to?
Yeah, I just want to certainly, in terms of kind of build on Attorney Cole's points of, obviously, eventually, there will be a call on this. There will be, maybe not a lot of them, but there will be a call on this. And I will pick on our short-term rentals ordinance a little bit here in terms of comparing it to a majority of our 35, 38 folks have complied. They've brought in the order, they've got the requirements in, they've done fine. There are 3 properties that continue to take up a crazy amount of staff time. And this without clear standards to send out our code enforcement officer or whoever ends up replying to the complaint or the call. Having a list of plants is great, as long as we know that our code enforcement officer can actually identify those plants.
Right.
I just want to, raise the concern that, sooner or later there will be enforcement on this, and the more things we can do to make it not a subjective, it matches, it doesn't match, the better off we'll be, and the easier it will be to keep and maintain the ordinance. So, well, we certainly appreciate the flexibility. I just think from staff standpoint, I'm gonna look at the chief here, and I don't know how many times he has to deal with a subjective interpretation of an ordinance or of a regulation. But the more specific and more measurable we can say, yep, it's there, or nope, it's not, the better off this will be, and the more successful this would be. So.
Anyone else? All right, well, this will come back in 2 weeks. Thank you, Thor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to reports. Please include any sustainability efforts or DEI efforts in your reports. Alder DePula?
No report. Actually, yeah, I'll report about National Night Out last week. It was
Yeah.
really great event. Probably the biggest that we've ever had, for sure. The biggest that I've been to. We had supporting agencies from around Dane County that were out. McFarland Police was there. We had all kinds of groups, including the weather trackers that usually meet in this room sometimes. That we all see the cars in the parking lot that look like police cars, but are filled with all kinds of other equipment. But it was a really great event. Lots of people were out. It was a perfect, beautiful day, and it's just echoing some comments earlier today about that Nancy made, I think, about the things that make Monona Monona, and and definitely that event is one of them. I mean, everybody came out. There was music in the park that night too. Just a picture perfect evening in Monona. So that's it.
Great.
I couldn't stop laughing. I think the helicopter circled the park 3 or 4 times just to build all the excitement and the anticipation. I kept giggling of it. That guy is milking it for everything. It's very well played. It was good. He drew people down.
Alder Holmquist?
No report.
Alder Moore?
No report.
Alder Wood?
A couple things. Parks Board met last week, and we talked about the Adams outdoor sign proposal at Ahuska Park. They're going to get some more information in response to committee questions and come back at the September meeting. MPO met August 7th, and the one pertinent item for us is that the board did approve moving the Nichols Road project back from 2025 to 2029. They also increased and that was at the city's request, and they increased the percentage of federal funding to 65% from 60%, which will always depend on how much federal highway money is available. Right now, we're still operating under the infrastructure law. That's going to expire, the transportation part anyway. The funding part will expire in a couple of years, so we'll see what they do after that. And then I just had, since we've talked about Monona, I had kind of a Monona moment last week or the week before. I was driving down Dean Avenue and happened to see a German Shepherd walking through somebody's yard. And I slowed down. I thought, that doesn't look quite right to me. So I stopped and kind of watched, and he clearly was going, out of the yard into another one. So I got out, and he was very friendly, well-behaved, was able to look at his collar. I called the PD and Monona Police Department, do you have the dog? was this is how they answered the phone. I say, yes, I do. So I don't know if they probably had my
Yeah, we know who you are when you call.
right. I don't call that often. And probably, I don't know, 5 minutes later, Officer Nate showed up, got the dog into his car, and was reunited. I think the owner lived nearby, so that was cool. It was like, yeah, that's definitely a Monona thing.
Alder Rademacher.
No report.
Alder Bernstein.
In terms of the Senior Citizens Committee, Newbridge, which is their main contractor for case management, has gone through a merger with other organizations, and as a result, their backlog on case management has been greatly reduced. So it's been a great boon for efficiency, and because we do lean on them quite a bit to do a lot of the outreach and care for senior citizens in their home, it's quite a boon. As many people know, Newbridge sold the home on Monona Drive next to Crema, moved around the corner on Cottage Grove, and then was evicted. So now they're looking for a new place, but they're committed to staying in the Monona, East Madison area. So they've, people know of anything that might work for them. They need about 1,000 square feet. Don't necessarily want to be in a high visibility area like Monona Drive. Something off the beaten path would probably work for them. They acquired a new accessible bus with space for 2 wheelchairs, and they plan to use that to take people to group events. So if seniors want to go to a play or a museum or something nearby as a group, that bus will be available to them. They are looking at buying a second bus. How that might help with additional transportation needs, I'm not sure, but we'll find out soon once they acquire it. In terms of the library, they are planning to install a new sound system in the forum room. And as far as summer reading program is going, it's a tremendous increase from last year. And most of their programs have seen a dramatic rise, about 27% from last year. Add the fact that they've increased the number of programs they're doing by almost 300%. You can see there's been a tremendous increase in programming and the support and audience that they found. So they're doing great things. And the new social media policy has been finalized, and I think will soon be in effect. I hope Attorney Cole got a look at that. I don't know if you did, but I just wonder if it has any issues in terms of that recent Supreme Court case that you emailed us about.
I can look at it. I haven't seen it yet, but I'll look at it.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that we might want to take a look at that. The library has been giving out APT tickets. I mentioned that, I think, once before. It wasn't a lot. There's been kind of a Dane County consortium, and it was, prorated to each library. It was only about 13 tickets, and they went very fast through social media. They are expecting another round of tickets. The idea is to try to reach an audience that don't necessarily avail themselves of APT for financial or other reasons, and so hopefully this will reach a new audience. And in terms of Monona Moments, I was coming out of a meeting at City Hall, and I heard what I thought was a red-tailed hawk has a particular cry, and I've heard it before. So I happen to have Merlin, which is a bird ID app on my computer. Turns out it was an osprey, and I've been hearing it from my house, which is a good several hundred feet away. So it's
been reoccurring. My wife says she's seen it flying over the pool in the mornings. So it's taken residence here in Monona.
I
So,
hope those lifeguards aren't very small.
yeah, watch out for your little babies.
And I think there's actually 3 of them, Walter, and there's actually, I don't know if it's a family.
3? Oh, you've noticed that?
They take up, they like the telephone pole right outside between us and Winnequa School. They also like sitting on the fencing that's on the mechanicals on the roof of the school. They'll sit there and yeah, if you notice the distinct lack of rabbits running around the yard, there's a reason for that.
Small dogs.
We've actually seen, I mean, to the point of, all kidding aside, yeah, folks with small animals should be very careful in the neighborhood because they're a big bird and they are definitely looking for.
What's the wingspan on something?
Do you know where where their nest? Have you seen the nest?
I think it's probably right behind. I think they like
You
hanging
would
in the
know.
trees right off of. right outside my window there. They're
They're
actually in
huge.
the tree. The
The
trees.
nests are
If
huge.
I'm
They
facing
could be as
Winnequa
big as
School,
a
that tree
eagle.
line that's right on the I guess the east side of the school. I think is probably where they're at.
Neil, if the Osprey nest gets big enough, will it count towards our net new construction?
If we can figure out a way to assess it, Alder, we'll be on that. Absolutely.
Well, I will tell you just briefly as a, because this is where my maniac comes from. Ospreys are very common in the ocean, and in Maine, there's the bridge that connects the island that I'm on to the mainland. There's a bridge that looks like a mini Golden Gate Bridge that's been there forever, right? And there's osprey nests that sit on the 2 towers. And they always, like a lot of raptors, they go back to the same nest, go back to the same spot. Like a lot of animals, they go every year. So this bridge is really old, so it's always under construction. There's always like workmen around there, and so they built nesting boxes right next to the bridge so that the ospreys would use the nesting boxes so that they could paint the whole bridge and do all kinds of construction a couple of years ago. So they had these big white painter cloths over the top of these towers that go up into the air. And the ospreys completely ignored it and just built the nest right on top of the painting cloths and kept going. And they're still there. I mean, they're the same ones every year. So wherever, it better not be in our construction zone for a new public safety building.
Right,
because
yeah,
I'm
I'm hoping it's far enough down, but yeah.
And I won't get into the turkey that's been terrorizing
You
our
just
neighborhood.
took the words out of my mouth. I was surprised nobody mentioned the turkeys,
I heard last night that some neighborhood kids have named his name is Jeff, so.
He's huge.
He's very big. Twice in the past 3 days, I've gone to back out of my driveway, and he's appeared right next to the driver's window. I mean, I just looked over, and there he was.
He's attacked our police cars too.
Yeah, he loves to pick at tires, so. Anyway, moving on to the staff, Chief McMullen, I know you're on vacation. Do you have anything to report?
Well, good evening. I'm officially back from vacation,
okay.
but thank you. I have a very brief report. Thank you, Chief Cheney. I'll leave some extra time for you. I wanted to say thank you to the pastor for the invite for the End Times Church event. The crews loved it. It was a great time. Also give out props like the Alder did for National Night Out. Again, we had a large turnout from our folks, and nothing but good things coming from that. Want to highlight our volunteers. We have a lot of new volunteers on the department. Just so you're aware, we've got 12 members going to class this fall for fire school. We have 5 in entry level. We have 3, I think, in firefighter 1, a couple in firefighter 2. I've got 3 going to driver operator for our engine. We have 3 or 4 folks going to either EMT or advanced EMT school. Really good buy-in by a lot of our volunteers. And in case you're not aware, the state pays for all fire classes as long as they're affiliated with the fire department, so which is a really nice thing for us to get them involved. I think that's it. It was a very busy week for the fire department while I was up in Door County, but we've got everything caught up. And Mark would be happy as well. We just put in about $3,500 into the public safety aid fund from state highway reimbursement just in the week that I was gone. and we should have another 6,500 or so coming from the state in the next week or so. So every dollar we can find.
Great to hear. Thank you.
Oh, I do have one more thing, and it also happened while we were on vacation. I know last month I talked about the cost of even the hose that we use. We had to order a new piece of 5-inch hose with the hose testing we did last month. The City of Madison Fire Department reached out through Dane County Fire Chiefs, and we're getting a donation of 4 50-foot pieces of 5-inch hose that they're surplusing. Total cost for that would be about $2,500 if we were to buy it. They're just donating it to us, so I'll be dropping it off on Wednesday. And our only thing that we have to do is pressure test it to make sure it's good to go in. Actually gives us backup 5-inch hose for the first time since I've been here, at no cost to the city. So a nice donation from City of Madison Fire Department.
Good to hear. Thank you. Chief Cheney.
Thank you. Just an update from the last time I spoke to this group about damaged squads. We have about 75% of them back right now. Thank you to Kaiser Ford for doing a quick turnaround. And our K-9 officer is doing some amazing fundraising with potential donors. So I hope to see some more funds coming in to help support that program and our equipment in new K-9 vehicles. Okay, so I wanted to talk about, and I know I've talked to this body before, and some of you individually, about why we do what we do in terms of traffic enforcement along our major highways and our major thoroughfares. We patrol the whole city, all residential streets, but a lot of what we do is we have to go where the data shows the higher propensity for injuries and crashes that occur in our jurisdiction. Jurisdiction means things that your police department and fire department are responsible for making sure folks are safe. We respond to crash investigations, and the state relies on us to do enforcement to make sure that we do our part to make sure that the highways are safe. And that's why, for example, we get so much money that we do from the state in terms of grants. So our main highways, state highways, are the Beltline and Highway 51. This is the second time this year in which the police department has participated in a speed enforcement initiative with the Highway Patrol. The Highway Patrol invited several agencies to participate. The most recent initiative was this past Friday. They announced it I think on their website and social media, and I informed staff that we're going to be out there. Sorry I missed all of you, but I don't recall seeing any of you during the initiative. I was out there as well on Friday. So it was the State Patrol with their airplane doing speed enforcement, us and Dane County. So there were 11 officers total, including myself. I really was out there to see how the operation flowed and to listen to some of the speeds and to do a traffic stop or two. I ended up making like 6 traffic stops. But State Patrol at the end of this 3-hour operation started at 10 a.m. on Friday, ended at 1 p.m. So 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., not peak hours or anything like that. Between 11 of us, there were 37 traffic stops. The average speed, was 86 miles per hour on the Beltline Highway of the stops that we conducted. The highest speed on which a traffic stop was initiated was 107 miles an hour. 107. So between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m., we're seeing the average speeds from an initiative with 11 cops at 86 miles an hour with the highest speed of 107. That's deadly, folks. Those speeds can certainly kill.
Especially because there's people on the Beltline doing like 48 miles an hour too.
100%. So we, Attorney Cole will notice that we wrote tickets for every single one of our stops. And I have some tickets coming your way too. And I, as Alder DePula talked previously about the compassion that officers have, and we want them to have discretion, and I think that that's important. We're not giving breaks for 27, 30 plus minutes. Okay, so you walked away with some piece of paper courtesy of the taxpayers of the city of Monona. And it's all, again, we're asking for compliance. when I interacted with the troopers out there, of course, that's their full-time job, right? They do traffic enforcement. Even they expressed some amazement as to some of the speeds that they're seeing out there. And again, the reason they're out there is because the community at large is seeing some of the dangerous driving behavior along the Beltline. And we've been nothing but, obviously there's some enforcement from law enforcement, some voluntary compliance. But we've been really, really lucky, and I hope that trend continues. We'll continue to do our part, that we haven't had more serious and significant events along our stretch of Monona. We have the straightest stretch, but some of the highest volume of crashes that occur along our stretch. So that's why we do what we do, while also paying attention, of course, to the inner guts of Monona and making sure that we pay attention to our wonderful stop signs, make sure our bicyclists know to stop, many of whom are first-time bicyclists doing the Lake Loop. But we're doing what we can with the resources that we have. But I thought, those stats were something of note. It's something that many of us, even the officers included, were like, we can't believe some of these speeds that we're seeing during those hours. And I've encouraged the higher echelons of the State Patrol to continue to, we welcome them to Monona and to continue to help play a role in trying to keep these speeds down to a reasonable level. So.
Wow. Something I found interesting is the number of people who don't realize that we're responsible for patrolling that part of the Beltline.
Right.
We are,
Yeah, so then
We are
once they hear
responsible.
that, then it's like, oh, now I get why.
Yeah.
We
so-
may not always be within the city,
Right.
it's-
Right, and so when there's a crash, even if it's a rear ender, your police department has to respond out there to investigate, right?
Yeah.
So we have a duty to make sure that we curb some of the crashes that are out there, particularly, when you're talking at speeds of 86, that's when injuries occur, right? So, yeah, we're out there, and I get that a lot, and a couple of you have asked questions, and I've given you sort of, I wouldn't say talking points, but I've given you the facts as to what to share with your constituents, the people I serve, you serve, that yes, we are responsible. Yes, that is Monona, and that your police department, fire department have a duty to make sure folks are safe.
Thank you. Teresa?
Chief, you mentioned that the State Patrol officers were a little surprised at how bad the speeding had got along that stretch, and then later you also mentioned that it's just a straight stretch of road.
Right.
Is that perhaps why there's so much speeding? Is there a theory as to why that stretch is just plagued?
There's a few theories. We've seen it. I talked to the officers. Obviously, I worked in Madison before this. COVID did its wonders too, with the sort of a shift of mentality, and then you had fewer people on the roads at that time. The introduction of the flex lane, that added a lot, but also the lack of space for your police department to sit and safely do traffic enforcement. And I'll tell you what, I give these troopers a lot of credit. I give your officers a lot of credit, risking their lives every day. I've had, I was wearing my baseball hat, not my cowboy hat, but I don't know if it's
not a cowboy hat.
I'm sorry, Stetson. I don't know if it's a
First person that says.
goal, a game, people not paying attention, but that hat has almost flown off me, almost flew off me 5 or 6 times while I was conducting my traffic stop, for people not slowing down or moving over. And as you know, your officers have been injured by rear-end crashes. One fairly significant concussion as that officer was rear-ended on a traffic stop on Highway 51 by a tow truck. So it's dangerous, and there's little places for us to sit to monitor the traffic. That's why an airplane asset was the best tool that we used on Friday. Or when you actually conduct the traffic stop, most of my traffic stops were far in the city of Madison. The violation happened in Monona, right? But where it was safe to stop them was towards the interstate.
Right.
Because there was nowhere for us to pull over. And folks, even some professional public safety personnel who I pulled over, not from Monona, needed reminder that you pull to the right and you don't stop in the far left lane. So it's things like that we're just going to have to continue to do a job of trying to educate folks on. I'm looking at you, Alder Bernstein, because you raised several questions, really good ones about OWI enforcement and what we're doing out there. I did a couple of press releases on some pretty significant impaired driving cases that we've had here in Monona. One included 6th offense OWI, an individual who was impaired, who had eluded police and had eventually stopped, and we took him into custody. And then I think the mayor, you had come across a crash on Monona Drive. If it was not you, it was somebody
Right.
else who
On
had come across
Friday
a
morning or-
crash
yeah.
on, I think it was Thursday.
Yeah.
On Monona Drive, pretty significant car versus pole crash, and that was also a suspected impaired driver too, in which we got a warrant for illegal blood draw, and so that's pending results on that. But we're still seeing that as well. The drunk driving, the impaired driving, combined with the speed.
And that was the middle of the day also.
That was the middle of the day, absolutely. That was before noon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, on most times, you have 2, best case scenario, 3 officers working in the city, and that's when they're not at the retail thefts or the domestic call or a beltline crash, in which we're able to do this proactive patrolling. So, which is why I'm going to always continue to advocate for a traffic officer while you have me. You're going to continue to hear me to advocate for that. So.
We tried. Yeah.
No. I will continue to bark, cry, yell.
Neil?
But just real quick, also want to thank a couple of Chiefs guys. We're out on Friday morning for a cop on a rooftop for Special Olympics. All the departments, really, I think almost every one of them in Dane County, I think, participated. So just a good fun event that they're just out there. Obviously, certainly the stereotypical joke of police departments hanging out at the donut shop is not lost on people. So I'm sure those guys take some good-natured ribbing while they're there. But it's a great event, and I actually stopped. I needed an excuse to stop for donuts, but I stopped in Sun Prairie and impressed those guys and talked to those guys. Picked up a second dozen here in Monona and took them back into the office. But so it's just a great event, and it's a great community outreach event. It's just kind of a nice, obviously, all these tough reasons that we interact with the community and not so fun ones, but they also do a nice job on these types of events too. So
kudos to our community relations officer for coordinating that, as well as National Night Out. I mean, it takes a lot of work to put things like that together. Special Olympics is who received all the proceeds for Cops on a Rooftop, but I did forget to mention something that was brought up earlier, the Monona Way and being so unique and special here, and calling and us knowing what you were calling, or taking a guess as to what you might be calling about. That's daily, and I think that's one of the benefits of having your own dispatch center, right? We've talked about that here before, and receiving that level of customer service that I know, based on 3 very short years of being here, I know this community expects, and they expect nothing less. They expect to be able to talk to their chief. They expect to be able to interact with their officers. They expect to get an answer to their question 24 hours a day, even if it's not related to the police services. We are the ambassadors of the city 24 hours a day, as well as the fire department. And this is what the community expects. So yes, we know about the turkey. We know the best way to address the turkey. We tell people every day when they call about said turkey how best to address the turkey. So,
can you deputize the turkey?
No. No, we think the turkey's turning into a villain here soon.
I mean, it could be a companion for Jacko.
Every day calls about the turkey. So thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney Cole, do you have anything to tell us?
Just one thing, Mayor. So we did, Walmart did file a challenge to their property tax assessment for this year. As you may all
Shocking.
recall, we have 2 pending for the prior years that are working their way through the court system. So this one will be added to that. Doesn't change the law at all. I really can't comment further on it because it is pending, but just so you all know, this is another year where they'll be challenging them.
Is the Walgreen also challenging its taxes?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah, in Monona at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, but.
They used to. But
They used to,
yeah.
correct.
City Clerk? The election last week, we had a 55.96% turnout, which is pretty high for an August election. It went relatively smooth.
Neil?
Couple updates. Just wanted to put this up here for folks watching at home. As we are continuing to, now that the question has actually been selected, the city has this webpage on our site. We will be continually posting information and updates between now and the election in November on that, so please check it out. We actually have specifically, I'll even bring it up here so folks could actually see it here. It's, I think it's on this one here. There we go.
Somehow you're out of this.
Yep, coming back here. This is here, so this is, we actually have, again, so we have got the question now identified on the page here. You'll notice off to the left, we've got frequently asked questions. We have supporting data and data and definitions. I want to kind of demonstrate this one real quick. So this is in terms of kind of a financial portal in terms of information we've got out here. Whoops, come back here. Where did it go? So we actually have our budget, previous budget information, distribution of the property tax bill, net new construction information, our audit information, our bond rating information, statement of equalized value evaluation, the actual statutes that's causing us to go through all of this information. So there's a host of information out here on this page.
The compensation study's there too, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually on the main page here. Go back to that. So if we actually go to front information here. So again, so we've got, on our main page, we've actually got the question here. So the specific question, the dates to remember, talking about the election date, information regarding the survey, and then actually classification study, and the links to those documents are all of that information is out there and available. So strongly encourage folks to check out that information. Let us know if you have any questions or anything as you go. But that will be our primary information source as we go forward for the next couple of months.
We'll be continually updating.
Absolutely. In social media, city's social media pages, we'll be providing constant, hopefully, stream of educational information to help folks with their decision as it comes up in this coming November. Staff met with, and the mayor and I met with Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District staff, kind of talk about their budget process. They've been kind of seeing a 9 to 10% increase for the last several years and projecting that going forward. Kind of raised some questions on that when we the rest of us are struggling at to even get to the 2 to 3% level, and just kind of talking about the process and how that, I think a lot of communities, including the city of Madison, have kind of, I think the term, the cake is already baked, was used several times by the time we see that budget information here as part of our process. So trying to figure out how to better engage with them and get a little earlier on and get some more feedback with that process. They're in the process of hiring a new director. So we'll see exactly so there was at least, Mayor, how many communities? There were almost all of them were represented,
most,
I think.
what are there, like 7 or 8 that are?
Yeah, so we're working
part of the
specifically, obviously, Dane
district?
County Cities and Villages Association is
Yeah.
our kind of our main entity that's kind of keeping an eye on some of that information, so we're going to be continuing to engage them as we go through with that. Our ad hoc Public Safety Building Committee has a recommendation to be coming forward here at the September meeting for our construction manager to help us finalize our estimates for what the building is going to be, the cost estimates. So we'll be bringing that recommendation forward at our next meeting. Just on the last one, I just wanted to make a note that Director Plowman and myself and Mayor, I can't think you were at that meeting with the Dane County Housing Access and Affordability team from Dane County actually came in. I know them as the CDBG folks, back in the day before they came in. So I actually met with their staff. I actually brought their full team out. They had 4 individuals here talking about some initiatives they're doing, how they can become more involved in Monona. One thing we did kind of zero in on, we think is a follow-up, we think there may be some opportunity for some CDBG money, possibly to help out the senior center with some projects we think going forward. So applications are in May, so we've got plenty of time to kind of take a look at that. But we think there's definitely some opportunities there that might help get some funding, help make some improvements at that facility. And that's all I got.
Okay. I just had a couple things. We're having capital budget meetings with the staff, department heads, and Mark and Neil and I, starting tomorrow and again on Wednesday morning, and then we'll be finalizing the capital budget that we'll be sending to council later in September. I guess I'd like to thank Aline and her staff. I worked at St. Stephen's again, and it was a very busy day. And we all just kept saying, I can't imagine what it's going to be like in November, where I'm sure we'll have like a 90% turnout. But people just seem really excited to vote, so it was a good day as well. But thank you, because I know, well, we didn't leave City Hall till 10, so I'm sure you were there till long after that. And then finally, I'm going to be gone the next couple of weeks, so Alder Wood is going to be our acting mayor. So, and I know Alder Moore is leaving tomorrow, right? So, safe journeys to you, and we don't have any appointments tonight, so is there a motion to adjourn?
I have a quick question about the referendum, if I might. Neil, so a constituent brought to my attention a document, and she may have done it with other people as well, but document that outlined the cuts that Madison was going to do if the referendum didn't pass.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if that is part of our education process or part of the FAQs. Are we going to be spelling out for people the reality of if this doesn't pass, this is what's going to happen?
Yeah, no, great question, Aldermore. We'll actually be incorporating that as part of your operating budget review. Those items will be in there. We have staff is actually working on 3 different budget
Right.
scenarios
I know
for each
that.
one.
Yeah.
So that will be included in those, probably the two non-referendum scenarios. Those will have
I understand it's in the
recommendations.
budget, but I'm talking about educating the public before the referendum comes to the vote as to if we don't pass this referendum, this is what you can, based on that budgeting, this is what you can anticipate.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we'll be coordinating those 2 processes essentially will be going on at the same time.
Okay.
Again, it's always been our intent from day one to not be kind of running, a campaign of fear or threatening of doing that. But in all honesty and in fairness, then absolutely, I think it will be needed that we need to identify. If we're in a situation where it does not pass and we're essentially trying to make up, anyway, if we still want to go forward with the compensation plan, up to $3 million of what we need to do with our budget, to say that those sort of cuts and service reductions would be significant is probably an understatement.
I know.
So yeah, we'll
people
certainly
need
be
to know.
incorporating those as part of that,
And it will
absolutely.
also include things like a wheel tax and putting the trash on the tax bill. I'm not sure if Madison has a definite list yet, or if I've seen a lot of things suggested that they might be, but
They're doing
I
like
can send you the letter.
5% across the board.
I can send you the letter. I mean, that was sent to me came from
Okay.
Madison.
Yeah, they're doing, it's certainly, I think they're doing,
I know they've talked about a lot of things.
yeah, similar to our process. It's, part of their budget instructions are to bring forward that specific cut, yeah.
This was something that was published to the public,
Mhm.
told the public
Mhm.
now.
So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.